What's up, people? Jonathan Wiseman with another episode of JYS Live. Today, I've got Chad Barron in the house, and we're going to be discussing everything about MSPs, and that's Managed Service Providers. We're going to get into the details of that. He is with ITCubed at ITCubed.com, and we're just going to dive right into this podcast and start answering some of the top questions you guys have been asking the internet. And Chad, thanks for coming in today, brother.
Heck yeah, man. This is it's a first for me, but I'm super pumped.
Yeah, well, and it's about to get fun. We're going to dive right in. We're just going to start getting into some of the questions. Before I jump into some of the questions that the people are asking, though, give me a little bit of history on you, where you were brought up, where you were raised, where you went to school at. We want to know a little bit about you. So give me the ad-libs version of Chad Barron. Because I see you all over the internet. I see you vlogging. I see you traveling. Like, you and I met online. We're both similarly aligned when it comes to putting content out there, shooting video, and all that type of shit. And I think that's how we connected. I think we respected each other's craft, and I thought it was cool as shit. So tell me a little bit more about you before we dive into the business side of it.
Yeah, man, definitely. And that was a really cool time when we met. But that was a journey. But man, I grew up in good old Pasadena, Get Down Dina, as we call it. But was born in '84. Lived in the same house my entire life, and went to Deer Park High School. After Deer Park, I went to UTSA. That was my first college right out of high school, and stayed there for a little while. Had a little too much fun, I think. And I was there for a year. My first semester I did really well. Second semester, I think I partied a little bit too much.
Yeah, I've been there.
But so I moved back home after that second semester. Tuition went up like 28% that second semester, and just couldn't afford it. I was working full time as well to pay for college and whatnot. Came back home, and I started working at Outback Steakhouse, and I was a bartender there. I started as a host and as a busser. Yeah. In the early days.
I did that. I started at Chili's as a busboy cleaning tables, so I get it.
Man, that's a whole other story, because I think everybody should wait tables, in my opinion. Everybody should work at a restaurant, in my opinion. At some point. Sure. The people you meet, anyway, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, well, that's another podcast.
But actually, working at Outback is what taught me a lot about customer service, dealing with people. So growing up, actually, before I went off to college, I was working with my dad. And growing up, my dad was a computer programmer. And so we had computers in the house at a really, really young age. None of my friends had computers at their house. And I remember my dad bringing home this huge briefcase every day. And this huge briefcase was a laptop, if you want to call it a laptop, because it was, about the size of a briefcase.
Yeah.
But he had to bring home one of those huge phones that we had to attach to our phone line at the house, and then connect that to this briefcase to be able to dial in from home.
That's
it was
awesome.
A crazy thing.
That was legit dial-up back in the day.
Seriously. I remember these 6.5-inch floppies,
Remember when they went to mini floppies and it was a big deal?
Oh, yeah. When they reduced it from, what was it, from like
6 to 3.5 or something?
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Oh, man. We're sounding a little old right now. So tell me, so he was bringing home the computers, the laptops back in those days that were the size of a VCR.
But yeah, so he would bring that stuff home, and his job would give us machines. So I had this Tandy, this size of a huge CRT monitor, and I would take that machine apart and put it together and play with it. And I mean, I had to have been 8.
That's crazy.
9. And at that age, that was back in 91, 92. Not many people had computers back then.
No, you started early.
I did. And, my dad he taught himself programming. He came right out of Vietnam and knew he had to provide for his family and all of that. So he taught himself what he thought was the next generation of what the world was going to be. And I'm super glad that he did that.
Yeah.
Because, look at us now. Look at the world now, right?
He was right.
He was right. And so that journey is what really, that passion for technology, that passion for hardware, just the technology age. So anyway, that's kind of where I got the passion for technology, was from my dad and from that. Then I went off to college and took some computer classes there, but it was mainly for, your basics.
Your electives or basics.
Gotcha. Stuff that I hated. That's why I probably didn't do so well. So anyway, went to UTSA, did that for a year, came back, and that's when I started working at Outback. So during the Outback phase, if you want to call it a phase, where I learned customer service and the different types of personalities and people and how to deal with difficult situations, especially behind the bar. That's whenever I said, okay, I want to go back to school, and I want to go for my CCNA, which is a Cisco networking degree. It's your baseline Cisco networking degree. And so I thought, well, I don't want to borrow any more money from my parents. I just wasted, however much money at UTSA. I refused to take any more money from my parents. I was like, I'm going to do this on my own. So I created little business cards from Vistaprint called Chad's Tech Support.
There you go.
And those business cards came in, and I would pass them out to bar regulars, in hopes that I could, fix a virus at home, at their house, or set up a home network, or, just to make a little bit of extra cash outside of the bar.
Nah, I love it.
To pay for books and tuition for school. That was my intent. That was the objective. And that's when things got interesting, because that was in 2009. And if you remember 2008 and 2009, that's whenever we had a depression.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is everybody around the bar were either business owners or center of influence individuals. So whether they worked for the business owner. And I was passing my business cards out like I would. And next thing I know, I'm getting calls from dentist offices, law firms, construction companies, because, again, these guys are coming to the bar and drinking and having a steak. They're stakeholders, they're business owners.
That's amazing.
And, well, of course, I'm not going to turn down the work, right? I'm not going to turn it down. So I started going out to these businesses and doing work there. Well, I would get up around 4 a.m., do the things in the mornings I needed to do to get ready, and then be on site at that location to do the work between 6 and 7 a.m. And then I would work doing the tech work till about 3 or 4 o'clock, where I had to stop to go bartend.
To get back to the restaurant.
There
you go.
And then I also actually had a third job. I was bartending at Islamorada Fish Company at the time as well, and that was at the Bass Pro Shops at 288.
Gotcha. Been there many times.
I'm not even sure if it's still there, if the restaurant's still there or not.
I don't know if it's still open or not, but that was a drop off. My mom lived in Pearland, so when my daughter was younger, and we'd always meet my mom at that Bass Pro and do the swap with the baby. So many days there and many times in that restaurant. Probably ran into you once or twice.
And the bread was awesome. That's all I remember. But it was empty because nobody knew about it. They just opened.
You can spend some money in that place.
You could, yeah.
Bass Pro. Whoa, shit. That's another podcast as well. So you were bartending at 2 different restaurants, and you were doing IT. What started off as trying to create another revenue stream for yourself. And before you knew it, you were doing as much business on a regular basis with your IT company and trying to fit all that in. So running 3 jobs at one time. So at what point did you feel, and you're going to college, right?
Right. So that the money that I was making on the residential side, that was paying for my books and tuition for school. And I was going to San Jack at the time and all computer classes. And well, as I started to get calls and work from actual businesses, I was, again, working those 2 jobs, working the IT and trying to go to school. It came to a point where I was at a fork in the road.
Yeah.
You know, it was too much. There's not enough time in the day.
Sure.
So there was a decision that I had to make, and that decision was, okay, I've got to decrease or ramp down something, whether that's put the business on hold and continue bartending and going to school to get my degree, or do I put school and bartending, ramp those things down, and focus on the business? Well, I'm sitting here today, so you probably know what decision I made.
Absolutely.
I think it was the right decision.
I think so as well. You've built a very successful company. At what point did you change it to the name ITCubed? I love the name, by the way.
I appreciate that.
And the logo is sick.
Well, there was a transition in the middle between that. It was Chad's Tech Support was the first business cards that I made, and then going into these businesses, this doesn't look very professional. Chad's Tech Support does not look like a professional organization, right?
Sure.
And that's what I needed to represent. So I thought the best case scenario was to change it into an acronym. So CTS Technology Services is what I changed it to.
Okay.
CTS being Chad's Tech Support Technology Services. So that's a little embarrassing, but it is what it is.
We won't tell anybody.
Yeah.
This doesn't go on YouTube, right? Don't worry.
So we worked with CTS, did the CTS name for several years. And through the CTS days, we doubled our revenue every year for the first 5 years.
Amazing.
It was December of 2018 when we changed the name to ITCubed.
Launched the new brand.
We launched the new brand, and during that phase, and then you'll hear me talk about my partner Danny Perry. I met Danny along the way during the CTS phase. He ran a company called TechCore that it was a social enterprise, kind of a nonprofit, if you will, where he bought old computers, old desktops, the big 30-pound metal desktops. This was back in 2014 roughly. And I mean, he would buy pallets full of them. I mean, we're talking 500, 1,000, 1,500 of these massive desktops. And he hired CTS to refurbish those machines. And I've got some really crazy pictures of.
I can imagine.
Just a quick sidebar. We didn't have an office during that day. And one of my good friends ran a big funeral home in the Pasadena area, and they obviously had a back part of that funeral home as admin, and they loaned it to us.
Wow. To
refurbish these. One project we did 2,000. We refurbished 2,000 30-pound desktops.
Damn.
And
can't imagine how much room that took up.
The whole back of the funeral home. But what's funny is it's connected to the hallway where they take the bodies to. So anyway, as you can imagine, it was a very interesting time back then.
Should have called it Dead Body PCs.
Man, crazy. But
hey, we all got some kind of crazy.
Got to start somewhere, and we
do.
We took whatever we could get.
It makes for a hell of a story.
Yeah,
I love it.
And there's some more interesting stories around that too, but that's for another day. So anyway, during that time, that's where I met Danny, and
I met Danny last week. He's a really cool dude.
Yeah,
and
Danny
knows his shit.
Danny is awesome, humble, super intelligent. And I like to say he's the yin to my yang, if you will. we're so different, but we fit well. And we hit it off pretty much off the bat. And his business was kind of on a decline. That the refurbished business, I mean, computers were getting so cheap, cheaper and cheaper, and that refurbished business was not lasting. So what we would do is refurbish those machines, and then we would deploy those 2,000 or more machines to school districts, different schools in HISD, just different school districts.
Sure.
Then Danny and I agreed to partner up. He already had an office, so we moved in to his office. So that was our first legitimate office at the time. And things just kind of took off from there.
That's cool. So jumping into ITCubed, now we've got a new company. It's launched. We're moving forward. Tell me exactly what is ITCubed and what services it provides to its customers.
It's kind of in the name. So the ITCubed, the cubed part, is we believe that in the technology space and what we do for businesses, everything revolves around three things. And that's hardware, software, and people. That's where the cubed comes from. It is an outsourced IT department, if you will, but from the top down, from your CIO level, so your chief information officer, all the way down to your tier 1 support. And so as part of that IT department, we provide our clients with your enterprise level threat detection and response. So that's like an antivirus, anti-malware type application.
Okay.
And that's just part of what we provide. So it's something that the organization doesn't need. We also provide your backup and disaster recovery solution, the licensing and the software cost for that. In addition to like budgeting and technology forecasting. And I mean, there's so much that goes into what we do. It's really hard to pinpoint exactly, we do this.
Sure.
But how I like to explain it is we take your business to a higher power. So we transform your technology practice from a cost center to a profit center. I put what we do in 4 buckets.
Okay.
And that is technology strategy, technology security, technology management, and technology support.
Okay.
Everything that what we do is in those 4 buckets, and everything technology-wise that any business is going to need to be able to grow, increase your revenues, even reduce your expenses and mitigate your risk are in those 4 buckets.
What type of pillars would fall under those buckets? Would that be, IT services, cybersecurity? What are some more technical services that people might understand that would fall under that umbrella?
The different components of what are in those buckets. Under technology strategy, there is what we call in our industry is VCIO, which is your virtual chief information officer. And what that individual does is they align your growth strategy with your technology strategy. We all know that technology is what is going to get you to the market faster. It's going to increase your reach to your audience. It's what's going to increase your revenues. So that VCIO will align those 2 strategies, but come up with the ways that we can actually increase your revenues using technology. And I'm going to use this as an example. So as a business owner, you should be measuring your employees' utilization rates, right? And the rule of thumb is you want to aim for 80+% utilization rate of those employees.
Okay.
So your employees are working 80% day in, day out, right? And your technology works. You're using the technology. That's everything you do is related to that.
Sure.
So what we do is we'll come in, and the strategy is we will follow. We do this assessment called it's a business assessment, and what we do is we follow the dollar from client acquisition all the way until it drops into your net profit.
Okay.
And where technology touches that dollar along the way.
Yeah.
We find the areas that we can increase productivity, increase efficiency, And we will actually work on that 80% utilization where your employees can do more by working the same amount. So that's more sales, that's more leads, that's more operations, that's more marketing, that's more everything as the flow of the dollar goes all the way through your company.
That makes sense.
And that will increase your revenues as well as reduce your expenses. But what's the cool thing about that is through that process, your employees' utilization rate actually goes up as well because the satisfaction the employees get from your technology actually working and working efficiently, and they feel accomplished in their job because they're doing more and accomplishing more, working the same amount. They want to work more, so your utilization rate actually goes up 5 to 10%.
Wow. Well, and it's awesome that you can actually track that and take that data and visualize it to see where you need to increase productivity or optimize along the whole process, from the beginning of the process, like you said, from acquisition all the way to dropping the profits in the bank. It's really a unique offering because most people will see technology as a profit suck, or that it's going to make them bleed out by having this extra expense. You've figured out how to reverse engineer it and turn it to where it's more of a revenue generator instead of depleting extra revenues.
That's a common misconception. That's the reason why I mentioned earlier that in the marketplace, people believe that our services are a commodity. And those businesses that believe that our services are a commodity aren't going to be able to grow their business using technology because they're using technology just to get by, just to do what they think they need to be doing, what they think they need to be doing, absolutely. But you should be leveraging every department. I mean, for example, during your growth of your organization, you need to get more sophisticated with your finances, right? So you hire a CFO or you hire an outsourced firm, that's going to help you get more sophisticated with your finances, allowing you to make more strategic decisions to increase your revenues, reduce your expenses, and mitigate your financial risk.
Yeah.
That methodology can be applied to every single department.
Sure.
Including your technology practice. And that's what we've done.
Let's just break it down to the nuts and bolts and dummy it down a little bit for some of the audience that's not as, there's a lot of techie people or larger companies that understand some of this lingo, but we want to break it down, dummy it down for the end user or people just getting launched into this. What is or what does MSP stand for, and what is it?
What MSP stands for is Managed Service Provider. And what is it? It's an organization that will take responsibility for the growth of your technology practice, that will manage, monitor, and support your technology needs at its base level. That is the core of every MSP, is managing, monitoring, and supporting your technology.
How do I know if it's time for my business to hire a managed service provider?
To know when you need to hire a managed service provider is when you want to get serious about using technology to grow your business. If you're not already technology savvy, if you're not in the technology business, if you could be in a computer software, if you're developing software or you're developing apps, then you're already very technically minded and you know where the technology needs to go.
Sure.
But every other industry, distribution, manufacturing, wealth management, marketing, every department, when you want to get serious about using technology to grow your business, that's when you need a managed service provider.
What's the difference between outsourcing my IT department or my MSP versus bringing it in-house? What's the difference between the two, and how do I know which one is going to be right for my business?
The difference between outsourcing your IT needs to a company like an MSP versus doing it in-house is when you hire one person, or maybe you hire a couple people, those individuals have their own line of skill sets. So you're limited to the individual skill sets of those people.
Absolutely.
Hiring an MSP, you're getting a wide range of expertise that really what the business needs to grow using technology. If you're hiring internally, and let's say you're an organization of 50 employees and you've got 2 guys. Those 2 guys are going to cost you on the low end about $40,000 per employee. And at $40,000 per employee, you're looking at a tier 1, which is on the lowest end.
Yep.
And those individuals they're going to be able to fix your printing issues. They're going to be able to fix your internet not being plugged into your computer. They're going to be able to fix maybe not being able to send and receive email. And that is baseline. That's not helping your business grow using technology.
That's more of a support, a tech support type side of the business. If anything, almost reactionary versus being proactive.
And that's exactly right. That is a big difference, being proactive versus being reactive. And that's really where the managed provider comes in, as being able to be proactive. But for the same cost or less of hiring 2 tier 1 employees, you can hire a managed service provider that already has all the methodology built out, that has the systems in place, that has the monitoring, the managing, and the supporting in place, that has the alerting in place, that gives you your cybersecurity applications, that gives you your backup and disaster recovery strategies and solutions, where we regularly audit and make sure that you can fail over in case of a disaster. The benefits of using a managed service provider versus going in-house is so drastic and so much more greater using an MSP than going in-house.
And it's going to be more cost effective than hiring entry-level employees. They get your whole team of experts.
That's exactly
around
right.
the clock. So in addition to, or one of the questions that they might have is, in the case that, okay, my printer does come down, I hire you as an MSP, my printer does come down, my computer's not connecting to the internet. How do you fix that, or do y'all have somebody come out on site to troubleshoot that and fix it? What is your plan of action for that purpose?
Believe it or not, we have technologies and equipment that we put in place that allow us to work on those issues remotely to start. Even if your computer is not connected to the network, we have an ability to get into the environment to potentially fix that problem and put your computer back on the internet. So you would think, okay, my computer doesn't have internet. How are you guys going to fix that? As an MSP, you're going to try to fix the issues remotely first. And if you can't, and it's determined that the MSP has to go on site, then the MSP will.
But it makes sense to try to troubleshoot it remotely to save time, save money, and get that employee back to work.
Right. And really best in class MSPs have a 30-minute response time, and that's remote. So if it's determined that the MSP has to go on site, then that best in class MSPs will have a 90-minute on site response time. That's to get your employees back to work. That's to increase your utilization rate. As I mentioned before, time is money.
All right, Chad, let's get to the big question. How much is a managed service provider going to cost me?
A managed service provider is going to cost you about $150 per employee per month.
So that's basically just, depending on how many employees you have, you just charge per employee to manage all the services for them. And that's remote. That's if you need to come to the location on site. Covers 100% of everything.
Correct, 100%.
That's not that bad at all.
That includes the cybersecurity protection. That includes your backup disaster recovery software. It covers a lot.
That's amazing. That's actually not as bad. At what size business should I think about hiring an MSP?
The size of the business to need an MSP is more complex than just the number of employees, because every business is different. We all have different profit margins. We all have different revenues. You could be a 10-employee business and be doing $50 million a year.
True.
But so it really depends on when the business has a need to grow using technology. When the business owner is self-aware enough to know at the point of their business the next level to get to is leveraging technology to grow your business. And that could be anywhere from a 5-employee organization on up to 500 plus employees.
Makes perfect sense.
I would hope at 500 plus employees, you've already been using technology to grow your business.
Yeah, you
but
would hope so,
there
right?
are companies out there, the old school,
Surprisingly,
the
Yeah.
old school manufacturing organizations.
but a good number. If you're getting up to 10 employees, it's something that you should definitely consider to see if you can use technology to help scale your business even further.
Absolutely. And those organizations typically will start with an IT guy because
That's all they know at that
that's
point.
all they know. They don't, business owners that are not technology savvy. I mean, we all have our expertise,
Sure.
right? If you're in manufacturing, you know how to build hydraulic pumps and the engineering behind all of that. You're not going to care about the technology. You need to get the work done.
Sure.
Right? So we all have our expertise, but once the business owner becomes self-aware that to get to the next level in revenue requires leveraging technology.
Well, I think that's part of why we're doing this is to educate those entrepreneurs or executives of how technology can help take them to the next level. Well, I've heard you mention a couple times. I think the word or the term cybersecurity can be scary. What is cybersecurity? What does that really mean?
What cybersecurity really means is reverse the words. It's security against cyber attacks. And it is a scary world. You see in the news just about every other week that a major corporation has been hacked or their data has been leaked or whatever the case may be. It's not a matter of if you get hacked. It's a matter of when, and you need to be prepared.
What is the likelihood of small businesses getting hacked?
It's 100% likely that you'll be hacked in one way, form, of another.
And what type of vulnerabilities are there related to that? Or when I am getting hacked, because I know we all get hacked, we end up with viruses, we get emails, text messages, we click on the link, not knowing any better. What are some of those hackers coming in to get? What are they taking? Me being a digital marketing agency with 8 employees, what are my vulnerabilities? What do I need to be worried about?
The cybersecurity landscape is vast, and there are so many, millions and millions of vectors that hackers could exploit to get into the environment. And there's really, I see it as two main things, and that is data that they could use, and that's, PII, personal information, that could be birthdays, social security numbers, things like that they can use, but also knowing that your data is important to you. They don't care if it's important to them. This is the second option, is that if knowing that your data is important to you, they'll hold your data ransom. That's what they call ransomware. It doesn't matter what they can get. It matters that your data is important to you, and they'll take it and hold it hostage until you do something about it, whether it's pay them or not, but you better have a good backup and disaster recovery solution in place. Just to add more context, the different vulnerabilities for an organization to look for when it comes to cybersecurity could be obviously email. That is the most common and majority of entry points.
And there's a lot of sensitive information in email. People don't realize how much their email, and of course everybody uses email, and more so now than ever before. And lots of times you're sending sensitive information back and forth that is very private, and you don't want people to see that or have access to it.
You're absolutely right. And there's again the different types of data that could be useful by the hacker. But the reason why email is the most used vector point is because, honestly, your employee is the weakest link, because there's not enough education, there's not enough training around employees to know what to look for and what links not to click.
True.
And you could put, as an MSP or for MSPs, You could put all of the technology and all of the security applications in place you want, but no matter what, you're always on the defense, and it's just a matter of time before the hacker can score a bucket. I mean, you're not gonna make the hacker go with no buckets, with no touchdowns.
At the end of the day, they're going to get what they want.
Right.
It's just a matter of when and how much.
Exactly.
And that's when your services come into play with your backup recoveries and a lot of the services that you provide.
One of the main core functions that an MSP should do well is a failover, backup, and disaster recovery strategy and solution that's regularly audited and tested.
Well, that's something definitely I want to bring you in for another podcast, is to learn more about cybersecurity. I just wanted to touch on it today. But next podcast, you got to promise me you're coming back for that.
Oh, yeah, I promise. Cybersecurity is a huge topic. And honestly, it could be a lot longer than this podcast.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely dive into that. I want to thank you for coming in today. Ladies and gentlemen, appreciate y'all tuning in to learn more about MSPs, managed service providers, and Chad Barron over at ITCubed. If you have any questions, you can reach out to him directly. You can post in the comments, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Chad, thanks for coming in. Ladies and gentlemen, appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.